So reflecting on the NCRI advanced disease subgroup, the subgroup had a session at the BTOG meeting just today. And during that session, we reflected on the potential for doing UK-based clinical trials in immunotherapy. And we really, as a group, recognized the difficulties in this area. And the main difficulties we recognized were around the fact that many of these drugs are now approved, and they are registrational compounds still in patent. And the companies that own and sort of market these drugs already have very, very extensive trial portfolios examining all sorts of aspects to immunotherapy. So we were really reflecting on what potential is there for the UK to do studies using immunotherapy in advanced lung cancer. And we were trying to work out spaces where we could have a role. And a few things were explored. So, for example, where there might be overlapping standards of care that are both approved in the NHS. So a good example is PD-L1 greater than 50% non-squamous non-small cell lung cancer. We have the option from Keynote 189 of chemo IO, but we also could give from Keynote 24 just Pembrolizumab as a single agent. So we've got the same disease, the same patient, but two actually completely different treatments. And which one are we going to choose? And so it makes perfect sense to do a clinical trial. Both of those treatment options are reimbursed in the NHS. It makes perfect sense to do a clinical trial that answers and looks at that question. The problem is everyone else has thought of that already. A trial is running in France addressing that very question. So there doesn't really seem to be any point in duplicating that. And therein lies the difficulty of immunotherapy trials in advanced disease. A lot of the space is already filled with active clinical trials that are going on in other parts of the world. One of the things we reflected on was the recent excellent news that the REFINE study has received NIHR funding. Now, the REFINE study is a study that I believe is being led by Professor Seckel at Imperial, and I think Dr. O'Brien from the Marsden. It used to be called CONVOLUTE. And in this trial, patients who are starting Pembrolizumab, either single agent or chemo IO, who are stable at 6 months, are going to get randomized to 6-weekly or 12-weekly Pembrolizumab. And after a short period, to assess the efficacy, as long as the 12-week regimen appears not to be inferior, the trial will open up and examine a range of different intervals of dosing of Pembrolizumab, all with a 2-year stopping rule. So this is a UK study, academically worked up, that has just received funding and hopefully will start launching in the UK, probably, I would have thought, the very end of this year and next year. So it was great news to hear that the UK had a national study. And it was very important for us to reflect on just how much work went into that trial, because the inception and discussions at a previous NCRI meeting were happening about 4 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago. And I think one of the big concerns that the subgroup reflected on at this BTOG was just how long we seem to be taking in the UK, from clinicians having an idea to it going through the peer review process of the NCRI, to the NCRI advanced disease subgroup and the NCRI lung subgroup saying, yes, we agree this is a good study, to then that having to go to funders, and funders essentially turning down really good ideas, sometimes on the basis that they don't think it's a relevant question, but that peer review has already taken place. So one of the things we were really conscious of is that it's taking a long time, often years, for the UK to launch investigator-led studies. We don't think it's good, and our benchmark to make that statement is we're looking at the IFCT, the French, the Spanish Lung Cancer Group, the NCIC in Canada, who seem to be much more contemporaneous in their ability to answer a contemporaneous question. They can have a good idea and launch a study far quicker. So we've got significant concerns about how things are operating in the UK. The chemo IO is now very well established in the UK, as is IO. I think all the oncologists around the country are happily using these drugs and learning about toxicity management. And so the meeting was really more sort of aspirational, looking to the future and things that we could change.